Cleveland was a gigantic garment manufacturing hub in the 1920s. And so there is something special here where we're only a couple generations removed from folks that remember that. So it really feels like we're rewriting history in real time. This is not going to be a thing that we say was here and is gone forever. And what does the future hold for making product again and doing it and iterating and improving it? It's nice to have something to feel really excited about. I mean, I think that there's no better way to feel excited about the future than to go build it yourself. That's the way to go.
Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the real pleasure of speaking with Aidan Meany, founder and CEO of Found Surface. Aidan is building a programmable knitwear factory in Cleveland that is reimagining what American apparel manufacturing can look like. What began for him with learning to sew from his grandmother and making clothing as a teenager has evolved into a much larger ambition, rebuilding the whole infrastructure to make apparel at scale here in the United States. Today, Found Surface develops its own yarn relationships from American farms and spinning partners, uses digital flatbed knitting and rapid assembly to make product close to home, and is building towards a future where brands can design, iterate, and produce without the waste, delay, and opacity of the traditional offshore model. In our conversation, Aidan and I explore the through line from his early fascination with clothing and making to researching the fragmented state of American manufacturing during college to building Found Surface in Cleveland today. We talk about why he believes this city is uniquely suited for the work, the deeper thesis behind vertical integration and domestic production, how digital knitting changes the economics of speed, customization, and minimum order size, and why overproduction, not just outsourcing, sits at the heart of so much of the apparel industry's dysfunction. We also discuss some of the specific local partnerships that Found Surface has developed with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Cleveland Museum of Art, the company's broader sustainability philosophy around natural fibers and proximity, the challenge of building an organization where young people can find meaningful work, and Aidan's belief that Ohio has a real opportunity to lead the next chapter of American industrial renewal. Aidan is a genuine inspiration, one of the most ambitious entrepreneurs I've met in my time here in Cleveland, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Lay of the Land is brought to you and is proudly sponsored by Cerity Partners. As a wealth management firm, Cerity Partners shares Lay of the Land's same dedication to serving local business owners, and the Cerity Partners Cleveland team understands the challenges that entrepreneurs and founders face here in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, and beyond. Wealth comes with complexity and increased demands on time and resources. It is easy to become overwhelmed. Cerity Partners clients benefit from a unified team of local specialists who coordinate across both business and personal needs. With Cerity Partners' commitment to transparency and putting clients' needs first, complexity can become clarity. To learn more, please visit CerityPartners.com or call 216-464-6266 today. Cerity Partners, proud to be recognized as one of the top financial advisory firms in the country. You feel you're at an inflection point, and I think that's actually kind of a fun place to start because It's not the beginning of your story. It's not yet concluded, but I feel inflection points are the space between where your conviction and vision has begun to take some shape of reality, which is in your backdrop there, as we can see behind you. And you have this awesome manufacturing factory coming online in the flats of downtown Cleveland. Machines running, team is growing, some deeper bets around vertical integration and domestic manufacturing, and it's all, beginning to compound. So to this inflection point, what is it that you see the trajectory fundamentally being altered here? And from that inflection point, what do you kind of see behind you and what do you see ahead of you?
Yeah, great start. I'd say understanding the context of where we are now requires, I think, a little bit of understanding about where I first got put on to apparel making and where I think the process could become viable and really what sort of lit the spark in me to do this at all, which overall, goes way back to my grandmother teaching me how to sew, but I won't go through that whole.
No, but we absolutely can.
I won't necessarily start from when I was 12 years old, but she taught me how to sew, and that got me really interested in just clothing and clothing design and apparel making. So I've been making clothes since I was uh, in middle school. I'm a Cleveland guy. I went to St. Ignatius. Did probably definitely the first, maybe the only one to do runway shows at St. Ignatius, which was pretty absurd when I brought that to him. But this led a natural, maybe quarter life crisis when I was in college that really loved being around where product was made, and I hadn't really defined a post grad plan from the industrial design program I was in. And so I started researching what interesting opportunities could be out there for me to be around where product was made. And, I was really, really disappointed in that. And so kind of one of those, like, I actually just kind of wanted to build the job that I wanted. And it wasn't necessarily entrepreneur first, or I want to be my own boss first, or those sorts of things. It was really just like, I love making stuff, and I don't see anywhere for me to have this, hands-on post grad opportunity. And in hindsight, I've been very entrepreneurial my whole life, but yeah, it was more about making things, being my own boss or anything like that. It is great. I'd say that.
What was disappointing about what you learned about the status quo, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, so I printed off government databases of mills and farms and cut and sew facilities. And that was kind of my starting point while I was in college. I was a student at Syracuse University during COVID, and that's when I started doing all of this research. So I'm a freshman, end of freshman year, part of sophomore year, Zoom school, again, hands-on ID program. So I was doing metalworking and woodworking and playing of just like design theory and all this stuff that then was like, well, just imagine you're doing it and don't actually come in and do it anymore. And so that I had a lot of free time to start thinking about what's out there for me, after this. And like I said, the government database search brought to light a lot of great potential, but it was a lot of folks that are legacy 20, 30, 40, 50 plus year old businesses that are really hanging on. Like, they're not thriving. They're not running around saying this is so exciting in the future of anything. Like, this is like, we're just trying to keep it alive at all. And so that's what was disappointing, was that there was no excitement there. There was a lot of, we're just happy to still be alive. And there was really fragmented, right? There was no example of a completely vertically integrated, cutting edge facility that was going to pave the way for any sort of a future in the States to be a manufacturing powerhouse. And so that was the opportunity that really I saw a huge gap for. Then you dive into all the reasons why that's the way it is. And this inflection point is really the definition of how we go solve that gap, not just, generally or in terms of, it's not vague. It's very specific as to what kinds of equipment, staffing, electrical consumption, inputs and materials, total supply chain strength, all these things that we feel like we've really got nailed down to a point to scale it right here in the flats in this new facility. So, yeah, it's been a lot of research and a lot of R&D, a lot of trial and error, but we've been doing this. I think that's the main thing we feel really great about, is that we feel like we've spent the right amount of time doing it, at times banging our heads against the wall, at times having unexpected wins, and now we're really scaling something that feels predictable and reliable and really, really creates a lot of value for the industry here in the States, of brands that buy lots of apparel.
If you trace the through line from that earlier in life fascination that maybe was instilled through your grandmother, with clothing and textiles and fashion, to actually learning the craft itself, to understanding then the system behind the craft, to then deciding the system itself, kind of needs rebuilding. Each like evolution of that is sort of a higher level of ambition. So I know maybe you didn't have the language to describe what you were doing in the terms of entrepreneurship, but maybe just where those two interests kind of came together, and just kind of take us perhaps through the origins of Found Surface.
Yeah. So I'll start with, I think, a funny fact, which is that the entity, Found Surface, the entity is the same LLC that I started when I was 16 selling clothes to my grandma's friends. I couldn't form the LLC because I was too young at the time to do so. So my dad had to do it for me, but it's the same entity. So it definitely, there's 100% a through line that couldn't be any more personal to me. When it comes to, I think that, making things is so important to me that the driving force behind getting to these different tiers of solving the problem or creating value has shown up because I just care so much about my ability to make things. So it's almost like the sales side of it has been a survival tactic to just have the ability to make stuff. It's kind of like the through line, especially when I was younger, right? Like I wanted to buy more material to make the clothes that I wanted to show off at my runway show in school. And so I would have to sell stuff to get more, you know what I mean? It was just a survival tool to get the ideas out when I was younger. And in a lot of ways, it feels very similar. And we've done all kinds of stuff in terms of adapting and changing the strategy, not just to survive, but to really learn about some pretty deep corners of the industry and of the market. So we went through seasons of doing tons of research and development work where we were building prototypes and samples at a rate and scale that we just could not do long term, especially with the team that we had. It gave us it gave us cash in the bank, which is huge, but it also gave us tons of experience that told us very clearly, once we took a second back and kind of changed that pace, these are the types of products that are gonna scale first. These are the kinds of things that just gives you we're going up against manufacturers that have decades of not just fit and patterning experience, but experience in every category of the game that we don't have, and so really expediting various strategies along the way of saying we're going to do a lot of dev now. Okay, we're not going to, we're going to pump the brakes there. We're going to focus a lot on supply chain and materials. We might even sell materials to brands, whatever that might be, to learn all the different parts of this game, to then sit back at this inflection point and say, we're going to do digital flatbed knitting and rapid assembly. We're going to start with 4 or 5 products, which I'm happy to get into. Yeah, kind of the strategy now. All exploring all these things, but really having a business behind each of the strategies, or having, reason for it was huge, because we learned about it. A lot of the reasons why the industry in the States has been so fragmented and not just vertically integrated, and how to pull all these pieces together. So
knowing what you do and what you have done has changed over time as the business itself has evolved, as you're solving different forms of problems in this industry. And I imagine your answer to this would have been different at different points in time, but how do you articulate what Found Surface is?
Yeah. We are the fastest growing manufacturer of knitwear apparel in the United States. We start at the yarn level with farmers and materials companies, and we are yarn in, product out for anyone. So you don't even need to know anything about the technicalities of making clothes or what goes into it. We ship yarn in this building and product leaves this building. We do it with equipment that is at cutting edge, top of the game, stuff that folks likely, and in often cases, do have overseas. And the ways in which we're putting them together and comboing them with rapid assembly, where we need folks to do that and automate at every corner that we can, we end up becoming a globally competitive knitwear manufacturing factory here in the States, and give us the opportunity to solve lots of adjacent issues that brands face by the nature of sourcing their product globally, when we can do it right at home.
So I definitely want to explore some of the specifics of what that looks like, the kinds of problems you're solving. I thought it would be interesting to kind of ground some of that in this made in America, sentimentality. There's sort of today a nostalgic, romantic, feeling about it, a resurgence of interest in what that even means. But I love that what you're doing is just very practical. It's about like, okay, how do you do that in a way that is sustainable in many different meanings of that word, is actually viable, that actually works, and maybe just help paint the picture of how you think about made in America and the problems and the opportunity.
Yeah, totally. So there is a gigantic problem that all brands in the United States are facing, which is overproduction and unsold product. And so, how we've gotten here is brands have been contracting factories for decades overseas and putting pressure on their margin, right? They want cheaper product. The factories have sacrificed over and over again through decades of saying, yes, okay, we'll make it cheaper, we'll make it cheaper, we'll make it cheaper. And what the factories have gotten in return is a really high MOQ. So they said, we'll make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper if you order more and more and more. And so that is just has boiled over, in my opinion, into the moment we're in, which is now you're importing tens of thousands of units per style into a warehouse, which is also a major expense, right? You need to warehouse all this product once it lands, but you're also now, freighting containers in, and you've got all these issues going on. So basically, American brands are facing this gigantic series of expenses that have been growing and compounding over time, and it's not feasible anymore, right? It's just like it's not working for anybody. Roughly 30% of product isn't, never sees the light of day. I was reading McKinsey report that says that 30% globally is $210 billion. And so that's you know, that's gigantic. Or sorry, to be even clearer, right? Half a trillion dollars worth of product is lost every year by brands as the sum. 200 billion is sitting in limbo always.
It's hard to even imagine what that.
Right. So there's $200 billion worth of inventory for brands across the globe that is just sitting in this gray limbo that will likely never see the light of day. And there's $500 billion worth of product that just is gone every year from them, a loss. so so and that's a sum of discounting product and throwing it away. And there's brands that are scared about their perceived value and they burn it and all kinds of stuff. But this is the issue that all brands are facing, whether you're big or small, right? Even if you're small boutique shop or you're looking for merchandise for your company, you're going on and you're getting kind of screwed by, oh, I got to get too many of these things and the per unit is so high if I only get a dozen, and all this stuff. You're getting screwed. So we have been very calculated in figuring out the markets that we think we can penetrate fastest based on the equipment we've identified that produces the most scalable, most price competitive product globally. And that's where we're at today, is we're unleashing this through contracts. We're making product now. We're turning this factory online now. And so the reality of that is that, yes, a lot of the system that we've got going on here is put on, like the pressure's put on equipment, and we're doing it in ways that don't look like traditional garment factories that you'd think of, because we're combining materials, we're combining training and knowledge sets, and having all these utility players come in and do all kinds of different roles across the production chain. But it's pretty fascinating how automated we know we can get, and how necessary the human roles are in that, and the people are to that system. So we're just right in a great sweet spot with the pace of technology, the pace of software development, the pace of AI and everything, we're able to implement that somewhere where we know it really doesn't have a direct effect on how important people are in this equation. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. I can go all day.
Lay of the Land is brought to you and is proudly sponsored by Roundstone Insurance. Headquartered in Rocky River, Ohio, Roundstone shares Lay of the Land's same passion for bold ideas and lasting impact from our community's entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders. Since 2005, Roundstone has pioneered a self-funded captive health insurance model that delivers robust savings for small and medium-sized businesses. They are part of the solution to rising healthcare costs, helping employers offer affordable, high-quality care while driving job creation and economic growth throughout Northeast Ohio. Like many of the voices featured on Lay of the Land, including Roundstone's founder and CEO Mike Schroeder, Roundstone believes entrepreneurship, innovation, and community to be the cornerstones of progress. To learn more about how Roundstone is transforming employee health benefits by empowering employers to save thousands in per employee per year healthcare costs, please visit roundstoneinsurance.com. Roundstone Insurance, built for entrepreneurs, backed by innovation, committed to Cleveland.
Yeah. Well, I think when a lot of people just at the highest level will think through why we outsource so much of what we have from a manufacturing standpoint comes down to the labor arbitrage, the difference in what it costs for people to do the manufacturing in different places all over the world. And I think you did a great job there painting, how broken parts of the current model are. When you think about the path forward and what the opportunity is for you and what you're building in the context of all this automation and where that moves the needle, but just maybe speak a bit to, this smart factory concept. Like, what are you actually building behind you? What does it look like? How does it work? How is it different from how we've done it historically, and what does it unlock?
Yeah. Super, super exciting. So we use digital flatbed knitting equipment. So these are programmable knitting machines that are the size of a small car. And I mean, we're even, there's some of them. And we are combining them with rapid by hand assembly for certain product lines. So the key verbiage to know to really understand what we do is we've got what's called fully fashioned product. Fully fashioned means that you're knitting down the components that get assembled for a piece of clothing. So for a sweater, you'd be knitting your sleeves to shape and then your front and your back and whatnot. And that gets assembled by our sewing team. Then there's product that we call whole garment knitting, which is seamless knitting. So you've got your beanies and even wearable apparel too that doesn't require any sewing or assembly afterwards. It comes off the machine ready to go. There are small, rapid steps to offload from machine and make sure that, product is finished properly, but it's for the most part fully automated. So we are packing this building out with flatbed knitting machines and clusters for rapid assembly. There's adjacent steps, like for some products, depending, we wash them in-house. So we have washing equipment. There's also, and pick and pack and all kinds of stuff going on too. But that is the flow, is that we have spent years developing our own relationships with farms and spinning mills in Texas and North Carolina. And so we are making our own yarn with these partners. We're making it out of USA grown cotton and shipping that in to Cleveland. We'll bring it in here, load it on machine, knit product down, assemble it or not, box it, ship it. The product lines that we do that with, like I said, have been designed for specific markets at this time so that we can make the largest splash possible in the shortest amount of time. And our overreaching goal is to be making around 300,000 units of product that's a blend across different kinds of categories of apparel by 2028, and to achieve 1% of all wholesale knitwear bought in the United States by brands by 2040.
Right. So certainly not lacking in ambition.
Yeah. And to give you a sense of scale too, right? So like promotional merchandise is we're like gung ho on this right now because there's a huge opportunity for us. And just the promo branded apparel market is $5 billion annually right now. We're also huge in pro sports and we're huge in museum merch. So it's like all these markets together, you're pushing $8 billion a year in terms of what we're after. And so we want to, capture a percent of even more than that. But those are our main priorities right now to penetrate.
Why has no one tried to do something like this before? Or if they have, where is it kind of broken down? I love, straight to the farmers to get the yarn, like the whole way.
Yeah, there are some okay examples, and there are lots of examples of failed efforts that I think there's a lot to learn from. And like I said, the equipment we're using is not like we are bringing it to the US in a blueprint that works, and we're one of the first that's actually been able to do that. The equipment is available. There's factories in China that has this, and again, you can get to this whole. I mean, I'll go on this rant all day long, which is that like we need to be like getting as many flatbed knitting machines in the States as humanly possible to be able to compete globally. They're doing it already. It's not a secret. We need to get the equipment and do it. So where things go wrong, material side, so lack of research, lack of stable supply, but then the materials one thing, programmers. Right? This is another thing. This is hard to find folks that understand how to work within the programs necessary to really like tell the equipment what to do. It's a very specialized technical role. And we are this is part of the reason why I started the business in Cleveland, is that we've got Kent State down the road and they have digital flatbed knitting machines that they're training students on how to program. They're a leader. They're one of, I'd say, well under a dozen. I mean, there's less than a dozen schools in the entire country that have dedicated programs to this, and at many of them, it's a niche extracurricular. There's no majors. There's nothing really dedicated towards this industry because where are they going to go get a job? They're not going to move to China and work in a factory. Like they're not doing that. So a big part of it is like they don't have any opportunities, and we're one of the only ones who were like telling Kent State like send us every single person that wants a career in programming because we can't get enough. So
Amazing.
one thing is not understanding that there have been folks that have put lots of effort and capital into building facilities with flatbed knitting machines, some of which that we've actually scooped up the aftermarket equipment from, who just completely did not understand that was a prerequisite to doing this successfully and just missed the programmer mark entirely. So we've got, we had in our early days when we had 8 or 10 or so employees, almost half of them were programmers, which is like, there are factories that don't even have a single programmer overseas. They're just contracting. So we've made it a priority there. Materials, programmers, that's where things go wrong. They've been a cornerstone of our strategy. And then overall, just focus. I mean, it's like when you can make so many different things, it is so easy to shoot yourself in the foot constantly by going after this, going after that. Maybe we should make this. Maybe we should just go after this contract and build around it and not diversify, right? Like there's all these ways that folks can get really just like excited, and you should be, but like it can destroy your focus. Like we've gone through our own
Shiny
evolution
object
here.
syndrome.
Right, exactly. Like these machines are incredible. They can do so many things, but when you're small and you're just starting out, your production equipment is your development equipment, right? Like there was a while where we didn't have designated production equipment and designated, development machines. And so every second counts on those, and being able to run the right models and do the right math on what your per minute cost is on that, on those equipment, but also what the detriment is if you're not running it, what your downtime really costs, and knowing like we got to figure something out here and really make some product for people. And that's what's been I think what's pushed us into realizing like we need to focus on less product it's very easy to want to out the gate make dozens of different kinds of products and say, look, I got something for everybody, yada yada. That's not what, in our opinion, actually moves the needle in terms of taking a bigger bite out of the pie chart of product being made. We want to, like I said, make hundreds of thousands of units over the next couple of years, and um, to do that, you need to be focused on less products, more units of less kinds of products. And so everybody needs a beanie. We make the best beanie in the world. Why not get out there and sell as many beanies as you can, right?
Yeah. The discipline through focus. So lots of threads to pull on here. No pun intended. Um, I think I'll start with when you think about the overproduction and kind of the sustainability problem underlying the whole industry. I can think of at least two renditions of sustainability. One is related to just overproduction. One is related to the materials themselves, but just how you are thinking about sustainability, what that means to you, and how is it kind of instilled within the business?
Yeah, that's been the immovable object for us. And I think that when it comes to focus, that's been a huge part of it. Your options materialize faster when you pick a couple things that aren't going away. You pick a couple levers that don't move. And the fact that we don't import yarn and we're making yarn with USA farmers in Texas, that has been a pillar of the selected kind of narrowed down product line that we're focusing on. So what that looks like is we make all of our semi-custom private label product out of USA grown cotton. And so we've developed that for our equipment, for the product lines to be the right twist ratios and just like down to the nitty gritty yarn spinning specs that our supply chain team manages. Uh, there's many reasons for this. One, we want to support the entire spectrum of the supply chain here in the States. We want, we are only as capable as our material providers. If we don't have material, we can't make product. This should be a team effort. This should be a community. We should be supporting multiple industries because they're all very critical to what we do. And, in the pursuit of vertical integration, you just don't want to be, our whole strategy is to bring things home, bring things closer together. So why would we do all this work and then go ship in yarn from thousands of miles away? It just doesn't really make sense. There's like kind of, there's a natural dissonance to that if we were to do it, and we won't. Next, I think that there are plenty of products that if we can get the manufacturing down and efficient enough that we can no longer sacrifice plastic as the input to meet the cost requirement or to meet the price that the consumer will pay. So there are lots of things that are made out of acrylic or polyester, lots of petroleum based materials in products we wear every day that are, you'll see more and more about this as time goes on. But we might be, I think sometimes I'm worried that we might be too early to the game on this and that people it's not quite mainstream yet, but it definitely will be. That this stuff is destroying every system in our body the more that we wear it. Your skin is your biggest organ. And so when you cover it in plastic, it will do things to you. It will have effects on, different systems in your body. And so there's a lot there that I am not a doctor or a scientist. So I'm not going to get into those weeds, but I think that it's very clear that natural fibers are significantly healthier for you and for the planet. I think then you get to the concept of total life cycle, not just while you're wearing it, but when you're done with it and where it's gonna go, what it's gonna do. You want something that lasts a really long time. You don't want to make clothes that disintegrate and are crummy, but you want to make stuff that will last a really long time and age gracefully, but not last forever. There's a difference between, a couple hundred years or 100 years and like question mark. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a big mission driver for us, is that for things like beanies, right? We make an organic cotton beanie that has zero fabric waste to it. It knits down seamlessly. And the very, very small amount of yarn waste that we generate in this factory for that product gets composted through Rust Belt Riders here in Cleveland. And so, I mean, I haven't seen a single apparel factory that is composting waste or can even compost waste. But we can do so because we have full traceability down to the farm, and we know that it's USDA certified organic for that product line. So it can go right into our food waste and our food scraps and break down accordingly. We're even setting up, we're going to work on setting up, sending them soil, sending our farm soil from cotton scraps so that we've actually done the full, done.
Oh, that's awesome.
But, it's a major play in terms of our health and the wearer's health, right? We want to be putting product that we know is sustainable, right? Sustainable, but literally like forever viable for the health and prosperity of people that are wearing it. So we know that there's a date at which at some point we're going to have to say we got to stop making stuff out of plastic, like truly, because it's whether it's disrupting our hormones or it's decreasing fertility or it's making people sick, right? Like all these things, that's what plastic in our clothing does. And there's stuff there's stuff that just doesn't need to be. There's stuff that currently there's no better alternative, right? There's stuff where it's like, this has got to be made out of polyester or nylon or something, right? Like workwear, utility stuff, fireproof, all those things. Like there's no way around that yet, but it's not necessarily what you need to be wearing all day, every day, or like on your head in the winter, right? So for those things, we see this as a great substitute, especially like the merchandise you get for your favorite sports team. That shouldn't be destroying your hormones, right? And it certainly shouldn't be made thousands of miles away.
Well, maybe to paint a picture of how this all looks in practice, that's a great example. Just, how did the partnership with the Cavaliers come about? What does that kind of teach you if you take us through from soup to nuts, or I guess yarn to clothing? How that comes together?
Yeah, I mean our work with the Cavs, and I also want to throw out there just because it's another local powerhouse. Our work with the Cleveland Museum of Art, they were two clients and partners of ours that came on roughly the same time because they were collaborating on their city edition jersey together at the time for the Cavs. And I had been speaking at a local gathering called Eco Speaks. Diane Bickett is the founder. She's awesome. She was hosting. She does maybe once a quarter. She does a live panel discussion from leaders in the sustainability space. And this one was at Great Lakes Tasting Room. And at the time, more recent vice president of sustainability for the Cavs, Danielle Doza, was there. And that's where we met and we started having conversations about, okay, well, how can we, work together during this city edition release and fulfill many of the environmental sustainability goals of the Cavaliers through working on some products together. And so that was obviously at the time, huge for us because we were still in our first facility and still really like testing lots of different methods of making apparel because we've made all kinds of stuff from, racing uniforms to canvas and denim jackets to medical devices we've made lots of things in our founding. And the difference is, what are we scaling, right? And that's kind of where we're like, well, what is this factory and what's the point of it? What are we scaling here? What's made here? And then Found Surface will be a company of many different kinds of factories, ultimately. And so working with the Cavs brought that perfect pressure of, well, what's the most you can do, right? Which is a very hard question to answer and then execute and deliver better than you set the expectations for. And it went incredibly, incredibly well. They at the time we were doing more traditional cut and sew method of t-shirts and hoodies for them, working with them and the museum. The experience of it is one thing, right? We can deliver it ourselves in our own trucks. We don't need to put a label on it and FedEx it. I mean, this is like the old days, right? It's just like you get to do things in such a high tech, highly efficient. It's 2020 at the time when we started working together. It was 2024, but we did it again this year, right? It's 2026. We're doing it cutting edge tech, flatbed knitting, boom, the new wave. But we're also like driving it down the street and like dropping it. It's just awesome like to do work like that and to have great partners like that. But those two uh, those two folks in particular brought to light some really interesting market opportunities like beyond them, right? Like they were like, hey, we want to set a standard. Like the Cavs were like, we want to set a standard in professional sports as to how you can go create traceable product. I don't know how else you're going to do it without us, especially from the United States, but like that's great for us, right? And so
Yep.
just showing that some of these things that people have talked about and have maybe indirectly talked about, but have committed to in their environmental sustainability goals. Like, how else are you going to be net zero by 20 or whatever? And like, apparel is a very concrete way that we are able to make this happen for folks like the Cavs. I mean, it's unheard of that a professional sports team can tell you the bale lot in the ground where the cotton was pulled from all the way back to a single unit in their run. And that's something that we can do. Like we make that possible to say, I can tell you like where in the ground this sweater came from, which is just,
It's awesome.
there's work. You have to want that, and you have to work with us to give us the, space to do that. But that's something that is like not impossible for us to do. We do it all the time. Yeah. They're just incredible local part to do it all in the same state. It shows that Ohio is on some interesting wave and everyone's looking to really push the bar and do better and really promote regional production and support each other. I think this is a lot about just Cleveland business and doing business in Ohio. So it's really special.
Well, let's speak to the intentionality of place beyond proximity to Kent. I mean, you've thought deeply about why Cleveland, and would love to hear you expand on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, I guess when I was in college, I wouldn't have known that I'd be so rooted here. But when you quickly, when you start looking at just where the talent is, where the folks that are getting trained on equipment for apparel manufacturing is, that's one piece of it, right? Like programming for the knitting machines, that's one piece. That's huge. I mean, Kent hosts a once every 2 years conference that is on knitting, and they bring in global players. And I mean, they're huge in this space. Like Kent is massive. But obviously beyond that, Cleveland community of entrepreneurs and business owners and the amount of collaboration between institutions, whether that's, in sports or in medical or in university, the private public partnership landscape is really interesting. And so I think that folks want to do cool things and work together. And it's definitely like that kind of almost indescribable Cleveland, just confidence and being proud to be here that I think is carrying a lot of things through beyond just having hope for the Browns every season. Like I think that growing up, that's like the clearest one. And you're like, oh, like they still stick by the Browns. And like, you're like, what? Like, why and how do they still show up to all these games? But then like beyond that, you're like, it's how we're in this beautiful facility, right? It's like we're a startup manufacturer. We require folks that understand our vision and the potential for us to bring really incredible business to the city of Cleveland, to lend a hand on deals and support us in ways that require everybody to think more about the greater good of Cleveland versus the greater good of their own individual business or practice, and see where Found Surface is going to bring a lot of value and ripple effects to the city, not just for, folks at the city office, but also other businesses around us. So I've just seen a lot of really interesting collaboration in my short couple years where people just want to help and are like kind of blown away that we are here, like a little bit blown away that we're here, but like the facility we're in right now would be $250 million in New York City, or so, you know what I mean? Like there's just no way that you could even financially make any of these things viable from a real estate, cost of living, or you get in a whole conversation about red tape and just how hard it is to move quickly on certain things. So
yeah. One thread I wanted to pull on, you spoke to the short couple of years. I don't normally, we'll bring this up in conversations, but I do think it's pretty fascinating I don't think anyone would understand how young you are as part of this whole conversation and undertaking. And I don't think we have to speak to your age, but I am like, where does the gumption come from? Like where you're executing at a level of competency and ambition and scale that I don't think people would associate with someone of your age. Where do you feel that comes from?
Yeah, I think obviously multiple places, but yeah, like no one in my family is in apparel industry. Like no, like I'm like definitely the first one in my family to do anything like this or to build anything like this. So I don't have any sort of like a direct connection to the industry or like has seen anything like this get built because I don't think anyone really has because the industry's been gone for so long. And I think that what really got me started is again this feeling that we need to be able to make things here on a deeper level. I think that there is a serious impact when there aren't opportunities for young people like myself to work at a company that they feel valued within and that the work they're doing has a direct impact on quality of product, quality of life, future of manufacturing, the community at large, right? Like there's like very I think that I'm a part of a generation. I mean, I'm turning 25 next month and I'm a part of a generation that has not stayed at jobs very long, not felt very connected to their employer, hasn't really had an opportunity to find a calling. Like there's a lot of this is like a common theme amongst people my age. And so I do feel like a responsibility to create an example of a business that is rooted in something tangible, is rooted in creating opportunities that are of high quality, but also are a part of a community and a group that they can feel really proud of and isn't like taking advantage of anybody or whether that be on the production side or the consumer side. It's just trying to do good work and clean up as much of a mess that we possibly can from this industry kind of left to us.
It's awesome. Love that sentiment.
That's I mean if I can bottle it up into an answer, but it's special. I mean it's like you show up here and it's we're all very excited about the work we do and um we're a full-time team of 17 now and we're building training programs with nonprofits here. We're giving people opportunities to do their life's work. And I think that that's something that I've been able to see that happen where I've created, um, and we've collectively created environments where young people can go do their life's work. And I think that that's hard to find. It's hard to find, also hard to see how awesome it is to put somebody in a position of freedom and decision-making power that maybe they wouldn't have for 20 years and just say go.
Yeah.
And this is what you get. I mean, this is what happens is when you just start cutting. I'm a big fan of a very, very shallow and wide org structure, and I think that like this lets people just run on stuff and break things fast. And if they have an idea, try it. And it's pretty awesome to just watch that model work. And it's just trusting. It's just trusting each other. That's really all it is.
Yeah. I think one of the real perennial themes of all of these conversations that I've had has been centered around, in some cases, life's work, which the best definition that I've come across is this lifelong journey or endeavor to build something for others that is an expression of who you are. And I feel like one of the highest callings is to build an organization that helps other people find their life's work. It's just very cool. It's like the idea for good work is the reward for it is more work, but work that you like doing.
Right. Element that I didn't mention here is that Cleveland was a gigantic garment manufacturing hub in the 1920s. And so there is something special here where we're only a couple generations removed from folks that remember that and would love to see that come back and thrive in a new way. So it really feels like we're sort of rewriting history in real time in a way, which is saying like, this is not going to be a thing that we say was here and is gone forever. And oh my gosh, what does the future hold for making product again and doing it and iterating and improving it and just like I think that it's nice to have something to feel really excited about. I mean, I think that like there's no better way to feel excited about the future than to go build it yourself. There's that's the way to go.
Beautifully said. What does success mean to you in the context of that then? How do you think about what you outlined in this evolution of building and creating clothing for your grandmother's friends to, maybe solving niche and specific company problems to, all right, percentage of global attire manufacturing. How do you think about the impact that you want to have looking back in retrospect?
I do think that's hard to answer. If I'm being honest, I think that that's hard to answer by nature of the priorities and sort of phases that I have to adopt throughout this journey. I have to care a lot about different things at different moments. And right now I'm in the securing contracts and getting everyone excited about you can know who's making your stuff now and convincing people and sharing the story, which is awesome to do. But yeah, when I take myself out of that, I I go back to okay, if I was back in college looking for opportunities, I would hope that future young people of the US would be able to go see examples of interesting things being done, boundaries being pushed, products being made. I think that like this is right off the, tail of Artemis 2 and things like that, where I'm like, where are the things that are pushing us ahead? Um, I think it's really exciting. I want to be a major contributor to that. So if I'm, I always say here, and we've got lots of people here that would love to do this, but let's make the spacesuits in Cleveland. Let's do things that are contributing to pushing the bar, pushing the boundary. We're in a rebuilding sort of a mode right now, where we're like, this industry was here and it's gone, and now we have to do it even better than they're doing it overseas in order to be competitive, and we're going to do that. But also, where do we go from there once we do that? And how do we use our equipment and our knowledge and our expertise to contribute to a significantly better future than we could have even imagined, and a healthier future with no surprises like all the clothes you've been wearing for the last 40 years are negatively affecting your health. And yeah, I think that's sort of my scramble of an answer there, is just that I want to contribute to an exciting future. And if I can look back and say that, wow, I played a part in that, that's enough for me.
That's a perfectly good answer to me. You've spoken to some of these throughout the course of the conversation, but I kind of appreciate the idea that you maybe never didn't realize originally that you are an entrepreneur. And it's, just through the following of your passion here that you've realized you are. What sticks out to you as the most powerful kind of entrepreneurial lessons learned along the way?
Honestly, like the balance between ego and confidence has been huge. I think early you want to say, I've got this idea, I've got this company, I've got this vision, I've got these are all my things. You got to figure out the right like dosage, if you will, of like, I'm confident in results or decisions that I know will stair step into execution of a particular strategy. But that can get destroyed when you start hanging on to, well, I'm the one supposed to be making those decisions, even down to what I think is like cool or not. Right. Like, I mean, that's pretty arbitrary, but I think a lot of this, there's things that you can say were terrible decisions. There's mistakes I've made that were directly because I thought something was cool. That's I guess that's about as like real as I can be, is that, you want to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people that are significantly more of an expert on a particular task than you, and to not ever be in the way of telling them no because you think something else is just simply cooler, or you want to be the decision maker on it. We've gotten real good at just understanding what the truth is and having conversations around what when you're doing something like what we're doing, it's already hard enough to make it happen. So it's a necessary that we're only talking about truths and that we're constantly chipping away at things that could be, build up of, well, we're working around this problem. We don't want to address it directly. Oh, yada, yada. I just think that that's pretty key. So I've certainly understood a lesson in terms of making sure that I am. Actually, I remember who said something like this. Palmer Luckey said something like this, where he was like, "I'm, want to be like I want to like eradicate myself basically from the operation. Like I want to like make it work so well that I'm actually just always in the way of things, right? um, which I think is an interesting pursuit. And not that I want to go away from it. That's not the goal. But I think that if you want something to really thrive and grow and be bigger than yourself, then it should be able to do well without you. It's kind of a weird, thing to think about. But that would be the kind of the wave I'm on right now.
I mean, I think one of the true marks of leadership is what happens in your absence, which is kind of the flip side of that coin.
Exactly. A lot goes back to trust and to be in the pursuit of reality and not a future version of it, but to really understand where you are in context, what matters now, and to be able to get everyone aligned on that, right? I think that's a huge thing too, is it's so easy to be like, well, I've got it figured out, but that doesn't really.
Well, I'll bring us somewhat full circle here and begin again. We started with the idea of an inflection point and, knowing that this is not the end of the journey. It's not the beginning. There's a lot we didn't talk about, I'm sure. Is there something that comes to mind that feels particularly important that you would want to talk about as just part of this current taking stock of where reality is for you and what you've built?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a great movement going on in Ohio, and I would just encourage the continued communication and gathering of decision makers and entrepreneurs and honestly the work that you do outside of the pod, or I guess connected to the pod, which is really awesome. But I think Ohio is leading an incredible effort, and I would just, I when I'm not in Ohio, I'm talking about Ohio, and when I'm in Ohio, I'm talking about Ohio. So I'm just super fired up
All
about
roads
that.
lead to Ohio.
Right.
That's what
I'm
I've
just
learned.
like fired up about it. And so, I yeah, we're over here doing our thing, building out the future of apparel manufacturing. And for brands that haven't cared about how or where their product is made, I think it's long overdue that you start doing that research and understanding that there is an end to the way things have been going on. There's an end coming, and you should have a plan for that. And we've been doing that for the last 5 years or so.
Love it. Well, I'll hit you then with our traditional closing question, which is for favorite hidden gems in Cleveland.
Nice. I have like a combo answer.
Perfect.
So because I just recently went there, but surprised at how many people generally don't know about Sense Pizza. So I have to throw Sense Pizza as my answer, because I'm like, I talk about it a lot, and a lot of people don't know, and I'm shocked because
Lots of Il Rione fans, Sense is under the radar.
I love Il Rione. They're no, they're very different. They're not comparable. They're not trying to do the same thing, right? But so that's why you should go check out Sense Pizza if you don't know about it, because it's definitely a different vibe. But I
have to say, I'm like literally going there for dinner.
Are you serious? This was not planned.
It's a great
not
call.
Planned. Yeah, that's awesome. But I recently went to the Kaijuju pop-up at Sense Pizza, and those guys are incredible. They've recently gone pretty nomadic. They had a location, they don't have a location, they're popping up in different places, they're talking about having a location. So the only way to know what the hell's going on is to follow them on Instagram. And but there's some incredible omakase chefs that are just, I mean, it's nuts. So they just did a pop-up. They took over Sense's kitchen and did a whole thing, and that was an incredible experience. So Sense, and if you can track down wherever Kaijuju's going on, it's going to be worth your time for sure.
Nomadic hidden gem. Tough to find.
Right.
Real hidden.
Yeah. Moving target.
Cool. Well, Aidan, this was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time and reflecting a bit on the journey. I'm super excited about what you're building and look forward to following along on your journey as it continues to unfold.
Thank you. Yeah, you're always welcome. I think as a bow, to tie a bow on everything too, I'm going to throw one thing out there, because I know we've sort of talked about all aspects of what we do, and I think that it's nice to kind of close with some visuals or some clear things. And at the end of the day, we make beanies, scarves, blankets, sweaters, and we develop many other things, but those are what we make. So I want to just sort of end with that. Like, I know we're talking about all kinds of stuff, but right now that's what we are scaling, and we're very capable to do more than that if there's an opportunity there. But I think it's just nice to sort of tie a bow on that. But thank you for setting up such an awesome conversation. And like I said, you're always welcome to kind of keep checking in and watching. I used to be a big Clash of Clans guy in high school, so it's kind of like
Sure.
cool to same sort of a, like, you can come check out the base anytime.
Love it.
Thanks again.
If people had anything they wanted to follow up about, learn more, where would you point them?
Yeah, definitely evolving our website all the time with stuff. We do blogs on there too. Foundsurface.com is our main hub for that stuff, and then we run a pretty cool Instagram. We've got a great team, so at Found Surface on that. And otherwise, yeah, you'll see us in more and more retail shops, whether you know it or not.
One more question, actually. What does Found Surface mean? Where does that come from?
Great question. Yeah, it was a high school art project I had at Ignatius. Some people might be familiar with the term found objects or found object, which is really just like, something you found in the world. Like, you didn't buy it, you didn't, really source it even, you just kind of came upon it and you found it. And so this project was called Found Surface. It was a sculpture project to make a sculpture out of, that told a story, but out of things that you didn't buy, you just like found around you or had it, in nature at your house or whatever it might be. And I remember I got that project when I was a junior, and I was like, this term is so cool, but I don't know. I just resonated with it. And I wrote it on a piece of paper. I put it in my wallet. I ended up losing that wallet and losing the piece of paper, but I didn't forget the term. And when I was doing this research in college, I was like, maybe this is a business and maybe I'm going to start doing this thing. I immediately was like, well, we're using what's around us. And that's the ultimate, project here for Found Surface. Yeah, it's pretty cool that it is still connected to my time around when I started this same LLC, which is so mind blowing. So yeah, thanks for asking that. I love telling that story. That's brings me
cool.
home.
So I mean, someone found Surface probably when they found your wallet.
Exactly. Give it back, please, if you have it. I love that wallet. But thanks, Jeffrey. Really appreciate all you do on this pod. And I've listened to Aaron's the other day, and yeah, a lot of, it's just awesome. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternjefe, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.